So Sophia on YouTube writes in, but the fast was from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, not of food. So how would you explain that, Father? How was it extended to particular foods? Well, in the garden, we do not, if you will, have, the needs of a physical body as we do now. And this can get a little complicated to extrapolate and exegete from the Old Testament story in Genesis of our creation. But when we live in the garden with God, we don't have bodies like we do now. They're a little bit different. And we know that, the Fathers write about this, as they, and the ancient Jewish teachings, in Israel were similar, that our bodies were shaped and changed after the fall by God, in the sense that, God had to give us garments of skin. That doesn't mean he fashioned a leather jacket for us. Rather, he refashioned our body to live in this world, in this fallen state, right? So the point, if you will, Sophia, still stands that we were given a fast, right? And that fast, relates to the obedience and the direction of our will towards God and outwardly from ourselves. Now, as we move out of the garden and food becomes a necessity, right? And the sustenance of our body, we can fall into the gratification of our flesh. This is a distinction in the New Testament. It's there in the rest of the scriptures, but definitely St. Paul extrapolates it and distinguishes this to a greater degree. The body is good. It's given to us by God, but the flesh, which represents, our desires, as they are directed away from God towards ourselves and towards the material world, the fast given in the garden now must include this fast from these material things, especially food, right? And of course, Christ makes it clear it's not what goes in a body that defiles it, but what comes out, right? But still, the understanding was that as we learn to control, and again, we see this, in St. Paul, in Acts when St. Peter records how in Acts 10, he's never let anything unclean come into his mouth, right? And he's told to rise, kill, and eat, that he's been careful in fasting. That's a fast, right? To keep the dietary rules of the household of Israel was difficult, but it was meant as preparatory for then learning how to fast and keep ourselves from sin, and to identify ourselves with the teachings of God and be obedient to them. It's not easy. What's harder, to control what we eat, right? Or to control what we say? Well, obviously it's harder to control what we say. I can avoid, let's say, eating a piece of chicken. That's easy to do. Can I avoid speaking ill of my brother? Much harder. But the one is connected to the other, the training of our obedience and our will, right? So I hope that's answering the question.